my God.
Wait, but you were both saying all of the faces that I froze on, they were super flattering faces, right? So
No, they weren't unflattering. They were judgmental. So we assumed that you were just like silently upset with us. So it took us a second.
They were all like,
wait, I don't actually have my video. This is my one screen issue. I didn't have.
In 1996, Scholastic began publishing Animorphs. Over the next 6 years, Catherine Applegate and her husband, Michael Grant, under the pseudonym K.A. Applegate, produced 54 main series books, several spin-offs, and inspired a TV series, graphic novels, and a cult following. We can't tell you where we live. We can't even tell you our last names. But we can tell you our thoughts and feelings on this series, book by book. I'm Miranda.
I'm Eddie.
and I'm Chris.
And we are the Anidorks. These may be kids' books, but we discuss dark themes and mature content. There may also be some explicit language. Listener discretion is advised.
Okay, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, I really do. I have it queued up here. I'm ready.
Yes. Oh, it's
16.
me. Chapter 16. Dak and Aldrea enter into the deep. Dak narrates, "We have many tales, we Hork-Bajir, of Father Deep. Father Deep and Mother Sky gave birth to us, their children. Mother Sky gives us air and light. Father Deep gives us soil and water. Both are necessary for the trees that sustain us. But Father Deep is also the place from which monsters come. No Hork-Bajir has ever entered Father Deep and lived to tell of it." Dak and Aldrea pass through the bright bushes and distorted flowers at the edge of the deep. Dak is frightened, though he realizes he would prefer to die here at the hand of the monsters he knows rather than at the hands of the Yeerks. At least then he would die like a Hork-Bajir. The fog grows thicker with every step. The temperature rises. A Get appears, fires at Dak and Aldrea, but his shredder blast backfires. Aldrea assesses that the atmosphere here must have absorbed the blast and reflected it back at the Get. Dak and Aldrea progress, though they run into two more Ged, accompanied by Karger, the Hork-Bajir controller who fled earlier. Karger and the two Ged charge, and Dak falls to the ground. Karger is just about to finish off Dak, when all of a sudden, the monstrous Jubba Jubba appears. The Jubba Jubba kills Karger, then attacks the Ged. Dak manages to grab a shredder from the ground. He aims it at the Jubba Jubba, just as it is about to attack him, but Dak cannot clearly see the monster in the swirling mist. Aldrea saves him, slashing at the Jubba Jubba with her tail. "You moved it as I was reading it, you monster."
I put Justa.
I'm too drunk for this. Oh, Justa as the Jubba Jubba. For the first time in history, Dak tells us, a monster of Father Deep has been defeated. So one thing that gets a little glazed over in your retelling, it doesn't get completely glazed over, but I just want to say it because it was metal as fuck. So when Karger gets killed, he's a Hork-Bajir controller, and he gets dropped with no head.
Yeah.
The Ged don't come back at all. The Ged get picked up and they're gone.
They're just gone.
And I have a wondering. I'm wondering, given some information we will get, not even this episode, but given some information we will get, and looking back, if people think about it, or if people who know the book hear this, do we think the headless Hork-Bajir was dropped as a signal? Dropped as a sign to Dak as another Hork-Bajir? And the
sort
Ged,
of like performatively scary as like a warning. Yeah.
Intentionally scaring Dak. And the Ged, who the Jubba Jubba had never seen before, he was just like, I don't know, and he just fucking ate him.
That's a very inspired theory. That's a very, it's because they were made to be a warning in the Blue Mist.
Exactly.
There's all this intentionality in the Blue Mist that we're about to get to. We should revisit this when we're not going to learn for another episode.
It is really
but it's a really good
feels
theory.
like a fun house, this chapter.
It does.
We will learn that it is actually designed to feel like a fun house, like a scary Halloween attraction.
Like a funeral. like a funeral home.
Oh, you know,
Right?
that hasn't been my experience in funeral homes, Chris.
Like when you go to like is Field of Screams too regional? I don't know. Field of Screams is a thing in Pennsylvania.
What was the one that we did? What was the one that
Reaper's
we did?
Revenge.
Reaper's Revenge. Everyone should go to Reaper's Revenge. That shit was sick.
You know, people come to New York all the time to go to Reaper's Revenge.
Reaper's Revenge.
Eastern
Dude,
State
it was
Penitentiary
lit.
also has some fun stuff around
Also good.
Halloween. They have some fun
Also
scare
good.
houses.
Although it's not quite the Wild West it once was.
No,
which my
that's
friend
true.
will tell you ad nauseum.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. If you have friends in the performer sphere, I'm sure lots of people can tell you that like haunted attractions have become very toned down. They're like barely allowed to touch you anymore. We had to opt in at
Talk
Eastern
about
State.
Sleep No More.
Oh,
At
yeah.
Sleep No More, you have to beg them to touch you. You have to be
And,
like, come on.
you will.
Come on. And you will.
At Eastern
And you
State
will.
Penitentiary, I had to opt in to being willing to be touched by wearing a glow stick. And I was very concerned about it, and all my friends wanted to do it. But I wore it, and then I wasn't that scared anymore. I used to be very scared in haunted houses, but like I'm easily startled. So when something jumps out at me, that's scary. But it touching me didn't really add to it. It was like
Miranda.
they jumped out, and I went, ah, and then they dragged me somewhere. And I was like,
saying,
okay.
You're saying you turned a haunted house into the Please Touch Me
Now,
Museum?
Miranda, what's really funny about you saying that is that Chris and I went to Reaper's Revenge together, and Chris asked if they had some kind of glow necklace that Chris could wear for like
make it
for
easier.
peewees. And they were
Yeah.
like, no, they're just gonna touch you if you go in.
My friend.
Well, so then, like, people
Scaredy
were so
cats is
nice
what
to
Chris
me.
asked.
Like, people would scare me, but then they'd be like, oh. And, like,
Yeah.
it was, like, really sweet.
No, what happened
get-
is I screamed every time they scared me. And they were like, scared a person who screams. It sounds better for the other people.
Yeah. I got targeted, I think, very early on because I was clearly nervous, and then I didn't have the reaction I was expecting to have, and I was like, oh, and then I stopped getting targeted. But my friend who I was with, she got taken to like crawl through a tunnel. It was like a weird thing, and she was like, oh no, oh my god, can you hold my purse? Can you hold my purse?
Hold this, please. Hold this.
Now-
So, okay.
I know, listener, I
go
want
ahead.
you to note that we were talking about, maybe you remember from last episode, if it made it in, that we didn't have enough time to talk about each of these chapters. We've now spent 5 minutes talking about...
Shut the front fuck door. Shut the
Shut
fuck
the
door.
fuck door, actually. The
Okay.
door for fucking, it's closed.
Shut the fuck door. That's closed, okay? The thing I would like to talk about is
Is that
in
similar
this
to
chapter-
plunging into Father Deep, by the way?
No, it's just what I call it when I wear pants.
Okay.
Also very good. Also very good. Point is, in this chapter, they're running through the blue mist. They're being chased by Geds with shredders. And there is just one thing that happens that really irks my sci-fi soul, which is the Geds fire. At one point, they fire the shredders, and it reflects off the blue mist and hits them and kills them. This bothers me for a few reasons, except for the fact that we talk about the engineering of the blue mist. So
Right.
we have these shredders. These shredders have unlimited power to rip through any set of particles. You point them at a tree, something you literally could not shoot a gun through.
Right.
And it just shoots right through. So it's like, okay, but now we take our flashlight. Our high-vis flashlight with the LEDs that could blind a person. We point that at the tree, nothing fucking happens. Nothing. We point a laser at the tree, it gets hot. After about 5
Right.
to 30 seconds, it burns. Point is, the amount of power required to evaporate a tree, insane. So you're telling me we get into the blue mist and they're shooting through what are essentially, you know when you go to the barbershop and they have the combs in the blue?
Barbasol. Yeah.
Barbasol. So they have like this Barbasol mist going on. And you're telling me that those little fucking particles are enough. Like, I understand scattering. I would assume like subsurface scattering, all that stuff, like whatever you call that, volumetric scattering. I would like that's
It
fine,
is-
but a direct reflection, if the tree didn't shoot it back, What the fuck?
It is strange. Aldrea does say that it's designed for a vacuum, or at least not an atmosphere as dense as this.
If it is designed for a vacuum.
To shoot through something as dense as a tree should equal shooting through something as dense as this mist.
So, Richard, you're going to have to send in an email. Miranda, go ahead and finish.
And she says that the atmosphere is breathable. However, what do you know about liquid metallic hydrogen?
Pause. So, hold that thought. Put a pin in that.
Okay.
Richard, you are going to have to send in an explanation in these terms for me to understand. I know you're very busy.
No. The standard is not Chris, it's Eddie.
Eddie level.
In terms that Eddie can understand.
Smart it up a little bit so that Eddie can understand it. Because if you do it in dumb layman's terms, for me, Eddie's going to not get it. The point is, when there was an episode of Futurama where they're going underwater and they say like,
yes.
We're at like 50 atmospheres, 100 atmospheres. And they ask, how many atmospheres is this spaceship? How many atmospheres is this ship designed for? And it's like, well, being that it's a spaceship, anything between 0 and 1.
Yep.
And that's what the explanation for it works in a vacuum felt like to me.
I will say,
I'm sorry.
That is a silly joke because obviously it lands on other planets with denser atmospheres than ours. It's a silly joke. It's very cute. Liquid metallic hydrogen is a substance where the hydrogen it's a liquid form. So I don't know if it can happen in a gaseous form. I don't know.
I'm opening my 4th beer. Thank you very much.
But basically, we're all pretty drunk. But basically, the hydrogen is so compressed and close together that it becomes conductive.
Miranda, I will boot you from this meeting. I will literally boot you from this meeting.
I'm just saying that if it becomes conductive and these work with electricity, but that would shock everyone. Then it would be like a pool. So I'm agreeing that it doesn't make sense.
We're not talking about electric energy. When we shredded and turned the Andalite ship into glass. When we turned the ground into glass.
So think about it this way. What if it takes a distance for the shredder to centralize into like a beam, but then it wouldn't make any sense that the backfire would hurt them.
Randy,
it doesn't really make any sense.
Such a kindness.
It doesn't really. I'm not saying it makes sense. I'm just saying maybe.
I apologize. I'm done. Thank you. It was killing me. And what I will say is they do talk about how the blue mist is possibly engineered. So maybe the explain it away is that it has defensive properties.
Oh, maybe. Good point.
That's as close as I can get, but it really irked me.
It does. It does feel like they're saying it's not just a fog machine. It's not just the blue mist machine. You know,
right?
Yeah,
right.
It's reflective in some way.
But it irked me when it should have yerked me. That's what I'm saying.
So true.
But you're not worried about how the Jabba Jabba works. What the?
Well, that's the other.
I gave up on how the Jabba Jabba works years ago.
That's the other story. That's the other story Jirahimi said he could tell us. So hey, look, the Jabba Jabba.
Yeah, you're right. So that's the Jabba Jabba Chronicles.
It's got 3 fingers.
I read those. All right. I'm sorry. I ran us 3 minutes over because...
That's okay. At least 5 of that was talking about haunted houses. So.
And Chris, you went so long. I kind of felt like when I came back, Miranda... I felt like I could see on your... I don't have the video up right now because I started to stutter. But Miranda seemed to be reacting when I came back, but Chris was still talking about the blue mist. And you hadn't noticed, Chris, as far as I can tell, that I disappeared from the call for a moment. So
you did?
So full disclosure, sometimes Eddie gets bored when we're recording.
I just leaves.
And Eddie will get up, take his headphones off.
He has a static image of himself that he replaces himself with so that he can go pet his cat, see his dog.
Yeah. Well, sometimes he makes them do the podcast. Yeah. Every once in a while when you hear Eddie doing that low left, that's like, that's actually Yuka.
And especially when you hear, that's Cora. That's Cora right there.
That's right.
The classic Eddie noise.
Chapter 17, we're literally... This is insane. We're just now getting to the next chapter.
Chapter 17, Aldrea and Dak.
Edling, why don't you read this one?
I will. You know what? I will. Aldrea and Dak keep moving through the deep before more monsters, or Yerks, can follow them. Aldrea can feel how Dak views her after she has killed the Jubba Jubba monster, as if she were some sort of mythological being. This is from Aldrea's perspective.
Yeah.
She is satisfied with her victory, yes, but her war is with the Yeerks, not with the monsters of the deep. Aldrea tells Dak it won't be long until the Yeerks pursue them, possibly with a whole army of Hork-Bajir. They must descend further into Father Deep. Dak is resigned to this, knowing that he hides here while his people are taken by the Yeerks. Aldrea suggests that maybe his people will fight, but Dak knows that they will not. I might have saved them, Dak says. Instead, I followed you, Aldrea. Aldrea wonders if Dak is angry with her, angry with himself.
You want to popcorn this one, Ed? Are you getting tired?
No, it's okay. I'm just drunk.
Also, Miranda, did you just call Eddie a bitch?
No, I called Aldrea. That was she said instead I followed you, or he said instead I followed you, Aldrea, and I went bitch.
Aldrea wonders if Dak is angry with her, angry with himself. Both, probably, but she believes that Dak cares too much for her to leave. Dak also has more in common with Aldrea at this point than any other Hork-Bajir, she says. It was too late for Dak. He knew that the stars were not flowers. Aldrea believes that Dak, having already learned so much, will always hunger for more knowledge. Only Aldrea can feed that knowledge. Dak would stand by her, no matter what. He would hate himself for it, but that didn't matter.
Dak would stand by her.
All that matters to Aldrea is destroying the Yeerks. Aldrea tells Dak that they will have to contact the Andalites. They may have to steal a Yeerk ship, she says, and go to space. She says this knowing that Dak wants to go to space and see it for himself more than anything. Aldrea is bribing Dak. But Dak knows that she is bribing him. You did not have to say that, Aldrea, Dak says. You do not have to hold out a ripe knobwood cone to make me stay with you. All this time together, Aldrea, and yet you don't know I would sacrifice anything for you. Aldrea is humiliated, but not sorry. I'm sorry, I'm just waiting for the moment where I go, and the light! Like I did in book 6. Aldrea is humiliated, but not sorry. Aldrea and Dak continue down into the depths of the valley. The blue mist collects overhead as if it were a sky itself. Aldrea knows that it is night above the mist, yet the mist glows from some light that came from below, deeper down in the valley. The ground levels eventually, and then stops altogether as Aldrea and Dak reach a chasm, sheer cliff walls on either side. Built into the cliff walls were doors, windows, walkways, arches, all connected vertically by stone stairwells. And below all of this intricate...
Chris is going really, like, Chris is doing a lot.
I can't see it.
It's incredible because you're just reacting to me laughing. It's so good.
And below all of this intricate... and below all of this intricate construction, the source of all that light, the molten heart of the planet. It is sort of like reading something where I can't actually understand the words I'm saying. It's trying to
Have you never had to read aloud while drunk before? Is this new for you?
I zone out so hard, and I'm like, God, I really hope these are words.
Yeah,
Like,
that's how it feels. That's how I feel.
Are you drunk
talking
every
when
time
drunk,
you read?
A lot of times.
It's sometimes because I'm trying to be like personable while I'm
Right.
I can't actually like parse of what
No,
I'm
it's
saying
like
is-
doing a cold read at an audition. That's the thing you've never done, Eddie, that we have, where it's like they give you a side and you just have to look over it for like maybe 5 minutes, and then you have to go do it with a person. Like you have to go say it with a person, and you're like, I sure hope these words mean what I think they mean.
But also, Eddie is right. I am usually drunk, and now is no exception.
You're not going to read a book. First, I have to get drunk. So
I don't read drunk. I read Animorphs drunk.
We have cliff dwellers. They're like the Anasazi. They're hidden down here. They disappeared. They're gone. Where are they? I always thought the Anasazi were really cool when I was like the age that these are marketed to. So I think this would have really resonated with me.
We haven't met the dwellers yet.
That's what I'm saying. I thought they were gone. when I read this, I was like, they're gone. Perhaps once before the Hork-Bajir lived, like, where are the people who lived here? And so, like, my mind went to the Anasazi, who are famously cliff dwellers who seem to just disappear. But also, what are you doing?
Outer Wilds.
The theme from Outer Wilds.
Okay, I've never played Outer Wilds.
It's like Animorphs Outer Wilds.
Whoever lives here, don't you think that they would leave like a little bit of trash, or maybe, you know, given that we're going to meet these creatures eventually, maybe they pooped somewhere they're not supposed to. I feel like there would be some sign that they had been, like a feather fell.
So put a pin in that. Miranda, what were you saying?
I was just saying that, like, him being hurt that she thinks she has to bribe him still, like, it's so deep and complex, because he is mad at her and he is feeling used by her, and still he knows he would do anything for her. And so he's like just earnestly telling her, hey, I would do anything for you, despite the fact that I'm aware that you're doing this to me. And she's so ashamed. She feels so icky and gross, and she still won't fucking stop.
Yeah.
I actually felt something at that moment, and I was like, oh my God, did this book just earn that emotional appeal?
It
that
did.
direct emotional appeal? I think it did.
Oh, it definitely
I think we're
did.
like,
yeah.
But like, I'm a sap. Like, I listen to Stephen Merritt songs. Like, I listen to, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I listen to a song and I'm like already crying when it starts sometimes.
Well,
this book, like, actually, like, I think made this moment happen where it's like,
it built all the pieces. It built up this house, and then it's burning it out from under you. It's like, it's
like,
so...
I like Rent. I cry when Rent starts.
Yeah.
Okay?
December
like,
24th, 9 p.m.
Eddie,
Eastern.
Well, so that makes me... So I feel like this is Aldrea is maybe our first... I don't want to say... We've had unreliable narrators. Like, Axe is an unreliable narrator, right? Like, I feel like maybe...
Sure, in a way.
But Aldrea might be the first difficult, even unlikable narrator we've had. And I'm not saying that readers won't... I'm sure lots of kids loved Aldrea when they read her, but she is not... I don't feel like you can trust her on an emotional level in a way that maybe you've been able to trust other narrators in the Animorphs.
She's very complicated.
Yeah, and she's withholding emotion. Like, she's compartmentalized. She is... I don't know that she is lying to the reader, but she is... Dak is so vulnerable. But, like, I feel like she is not doing the thing that a kid reading these books probably... A kid probably naturally wants to identify with Aldrea, and she's not behaving in the way that kid probably wants. Like, a kid wants her to love and embrace Doc, right? Like, I feel like that's... They want the two of them to be able to communicate cleanly, and Aldrea is the one with secrets, and we don't even know that she's withholding information about the Yeerks from Dak. You know what I mean? Like,
that's so interesting. I don't know what I would have wanted as a kid.
Yeah.
That's a really good question. Yeah.
But she's not behaving in that way, I don't think. I don't think that she's behaving...
No, I think you're right.
Yeah. Like, she could say something here to make Dak feel better about their situation, you know? And she's not saying that thing. So... You
know, it's giving Left Hand to Darkness. It's giving that, like, dual storytelling, like, chapter swap, this is weird thing. Yeah. It's, like, very mature for what it is. It's really remarkable.
A kid does not want Aldrea to bribe Dak, right? Like, they want her to have realized that that's what she was doing and say something else. Is that a fair thing to say? Like,
makes perfect sense to me. Yeah. I'm sorry if, like, what I'm saying is not... I'm sorry if I'm not, like, validating your point.
No.
I'm trying to.
Yeah.
No, but I hear that. I think, like, what you're saying is like, she did a bad thing and they're not resolving it immediately.
Yeah,
like,
that's a good, that's a good way of putting it, yeah.
And no, they have their reasons for being entrenched in this modality of their dialogue. Mm-hmm. So it's like, no, it's not going to resolve right now. That's something that's going to, like, we're going to watch that play out over the end of the book.
And I don't remember I don't have the book up in front of me, but the fact that she's humiliated when she sees Dak's response, and then she doesn't apologize. Like, she she stands her ground in this way.
No, and I do have the book up in front of me, and the way she sort of explains it is that saying sorry would have been a lie. Because she goes on to say, you see, at that moment, nothing mattered to me. Nothing but erasing the pain of watching my family burn. What Dak thought of me, even what I thought of myself, none of that really mattered. Mm-hmm. And so, like, she's putting aside not only Dak's feelings about her, but how she feels about what she's doing and whether or not she thinks it's a morally justifiable choice to move forward with her end goal. And I think that's a really interesting thing to see from someone that has previously been a somewhat sympathetic character.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also, I feel like Andalites are, outside of humans, they're the most natural point of identification for kids. And I could believe
for the readers of the series, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry, for readers of the series, yeah. And K.A. Applegate is not giving the reader the Andalite as that point of identification. She's actually giving them the Hork-Bajir. And the Andalites are like actually kind of refuting that, you know? And they're
interestingly, I think she swapped their positions sort of without you noticing. It's hard to pinpoint exactly where you start identifying more with Dakami than you do with Aldrea. It's very interesting.
It has something to do with the plight of Esplin, in my mind.
Yeah.
That's part of the sleight of hand. Like, because he is actually a bizarrely, like... It's like they were trapped by the Andalites. They made their escape. They're, like, obviously ethically dubious, but, like, what they want is so, like what they want is to feel what the Andalite feels. That drags the Andalite down.
I think you're exactly right, that there's a parallel, there's a drawing of a parallel between Esplin's ambition and Aldrea's quest for vengeance that causes you to suddenly see that similarity in them that maybe previously you had not considered looking at. You had not considered looking at Andalite arrogance and Yeerk arrogance, at least in this book, as the same type of thing. Yeah, but Aldrea, who is presented to you as someone she's a kid, so you're supposed to identify with her. She saw Ciro do what he did, knows it was a mistake, but also thinks Alarin went too far. So, like, you're supposed to be like, oh, she's our strong, neutral voice. You know what I mean? She's someone in the middle. And then through the purity of Dak and the ambition of Esplin 9466, you see that she's not as in the middle as she looks like she is. And at this point in the book, she's lining up much more closely with Esplin than she is with Dak.
Yeah.
Which is also, and maybe we should hit this nail square on the head, because, like, as readers who are reading through pretty linearly and trying to hit everything in one go, like, she has Axe-like moments. She has moments where she knows technology and she goes into technobabble and stuff like that. She even has moments that echoes Axe's loneliness being cut off from the rest of... And, like, she has also experienced a direct family loss in a similar way to Axe. So what really is hitting me in this moment emotionally about that is, like, Axe is a very special boy. Like, Axe is actually possibly unique in his emotionality, but we know him as normative to the Andalite reality.
Yeah.
And when we see the family and we see how they actually are, there's this nice realization of how special Axe might actually be, because we just don't have many comparison points otherwise.
I really like that, and I think it's a totally fair reading, and I do like it, but I want...
You can cut it down.
I want to take it from an opposite perspective of what it means for Axe to have had the support system when his faith in Andalites fell out. As opposed to Aldrea being isolated and having exactly one friend.
May I say I did not mean that as any sort of disparaging coloring on how Aldrea is handling it. I think she's actually doing a great job.
Right.
What really hits me is her voice.
Right.
Like, is her voice and her determination.
And I think
that's something that Axe doesn't have as much.
I agree. And I think Axe is special, but I do also think it's trying to make a point about how his friends' empathy toward him, but toward other creatures, was a big difference in how this all played out in the war on Earth versus the war here.
Yeah.
And
I do think it's also...
and having more than one friend and having them and having it not be a friend who is different from everybody else. He had friends of many different perspectives who taught him many different things about the culture where he lived. And I think he is special in that he learned to not view himself as completely above them. But I think the depth of his support system has a lot to do with that. And that's just my take.
And also, I do feel like it's worth saying that the lift that Aldrea had to perform with the Hork-Bajir is different than the lift that Axe had to perform with humans. I do feel like those are just different situations.
He got there and the Animorphs were already fighting. So, like...
Yeah, that's a really good point. Do you feel like Elfangor's attention was actually similar to Axe's is a question I want to ask on a minisode sometime.
Yeah, I want to think about that before I come up with an answer.
Yeah, I want to think about that. But, that's sort of what I'm thinking is, I
think it would be interesting to think about
I'm not trying
Axe,
to armchair
Aldrea,
diagnose.
Yeah, Axe,
I'm just
Aldrea, Elfangor, and even Alaran and...
Alaran.
What's his name?
I don't want to talk about Alaran any more than we have to. But.
What's our
his buddy who got turned into a taxon? What was his name?
Taxon.
Sophor? No.
No, Sophor was his boss, and he was his military trainer, and he comes up in this.
Arbron.
Arbron.
All right. Shall I move us to chapter 18? All right, let's do it. We return to Esplin's perspective, learning that he was the very Hork-Bajir controller that Dak attacked chapters ago. With his host's severed spine, all Esplin can do is wait for his people to rescue him. This was a fucking wild chapter.
It's true.
Hours later, Esplin returns to the Yeerk pool. Then he was interrogated about the attack on the Andalite outpost. Where did the Andalite girl go? How many Hork-Bajir were with her? What happened to Karger? My favorite, bestest mean boy. Through the questioning, Esplin is able to piece together what has happened since he was injured. 7 controllers have passed through the blue mist into the depths of the Hork-Bajir planet. Only one has survived the monsters that lurk below the mist. The Yeerks underestimated This is interesting. They don't have a word for blue, do they? Do they call it a blue mist?
Yes.
Miranda,
we have sent strong armed parties into the blue mist, Actor told me.
Okay, so they develop a concept of color very quickly.
That's true. They're not a site-based species.
The Yeerks underestimated the Andalites. They believe that if their own have fallen to the monster, then the Andalite girl must have perished as well. Esplin knows better, but no one will listen to him. He is returned to the Yeerk pool, just deposited, just kind of like a koi in a pond, just like, get in there. Days later, after enough Hork-Bajir have been seized by the Yeerks, Esplin is given a new host. He learns that they have found many bodies within the blue mist, but none of them are Andalite. Esplin was right. Now he is ordered to find the Andalite girl and destroy her. If he succeeds, he will be made a subvisor. Esplin says that he will not need an army to complete this mission, just a loaded Tech 29. What are this called?
Golden Deagle.
He will go as a Hork-Bajir and exist among their people. That's fucking...
He's a spy.
Man. Spy. He's a spy. Really, though, he has no intention of destroying Aldrea. He would rather infest her? After all, there's clearly a hierarchy forming among hosts, the Ged being less than the Hork-Bajir, and there's never been an Andalite controller. So that would be highest, logically. Should Esplin succeed in acquiring the Andalite host, they'd have to make him at least a Visser. What a bummer. After that, who knows? Maybe a Visser, or a Council of 13. Maybe even a spot on the Council of 13. Maybe
the whole Council of 13.
With the Council of 13. Can you believe that I ripped the ending of your dumbass fan?
Yeah, you do it all the time, Chris.
If they had just listened to him in the first place, this wouldn't have happened. A. B. As a quick little aside, we do learn that the Yeerks can't filter out the pain of their host. And that's interesting. He's like, he got paralyzed and he was like, that fucking sucked, dude. He was like, that sucked. I didn't like it. I wish that I hadn't done that. But like, yeah, it's mostly just a chapter of him being really ambitious and being like, they'll have to respect me if I become an Andalite. And like, admittedly, there's no organization here. People are just declaring themselves sub-vissers. So like, yeah, maybe.
Can we talk for a moment though about, there was something in an earlier chapter where Aldrea is running down that hill prior to the plunging into the blue
That's
mist.
my favorite Kate Bush song.
God.
God.
Two avocados for $10. Sorry.
Running down that hill.
Into the blue mist.
With no problems, it doesn't hurt me. Yeah. Do you know what that song's about, Eddie?
Okay, it's about giving
Gayness.
birth. Yes.
Do you know what that song's about?
Yeah. I don't know about...
Okay, because
It's
it's
about
about
Stranger
Lucy.
Things.
Yeah, it's about Stranger
But you do know about that song.
I do know about Stranger Things, is what I was going to say, which led me to Kate Bush, which led me to I Love Lucy.
I'm just saying, earlier we were talking about pegging Father Deep, and that's exactly what running down that hill is about.
Oh.
Okay.
The hill being his ass.
Yes. What was my point?
Oh, you have something about the Yeerks being the OG incels?
Yes, yeah. So, so the Yeerks have trouble with the terrain, as the Andalites do. But Aldrea knows that that's an advantage that she will have over the Yeerks, that the Andalites will have over the Yeerks, because not only are they going to struggle with the terrain, they do not have, they're new to sight in the way that the Andalites are. And that is that's an advantage that they've always had over the Yeerks. So the power dynamic, they're just catching up, and Aldrea's like, they think they've caught up, but really they're going to still struggle with this thing. It actually just highlights this power dynamic that's always existed there. And it's hard to hold that while the Yeerks are wiping out the Hork-Bajir people and plenty of other people. But the Andalites have always had an advantage over them. And so it just highlights this fucked up thing about that entire dynamic.
They do seem to adapt pretty quickly. And
Yes,
my
they do,
guess would be about the color blue. He says way back when Esplin 9466 first
A long time ago.
goes to talk to, not Karger, but Actor, I think it is. The like sort of guy in charge. He starts speaking to him in Gallard, and it takes him a second to realize like that's what's going on. And so if they know Gallard, I assume it has words for colors. So like, and the Hork-Bajir brain would have words for colors. And in theory, once they're sort of acclimated to their host, they can absorb a lifetime's worth of using sight to their advantage. But unfortunately, the Hork-Bajir are neither predator nor prey. So like the Andalites have the advantage of having had to watch out for themselves as they evolved as a species, and the Hork-Bajir don't. But like, I don't know that I had a point. I don't know that there was a point to this. My only point is that, like, I think they adapted to sight pretty quickly, so I don't know that the Andalites ever really could have...
It's a perceived difference between the Andalites and the Yeerks, but that doesn't mean that it's actually... Like, the Andalites are always going to look down on, but at least we have this over them.
But never look up.
Yeah. Yes, that's true. Yeah.
I think him wanting to be a spy, you were talking about that, right?
Yeah. A bit.
Can we just talk about the theater kid implications?
I want to inhabit the role.
Right. I want to get in there and I want to be method.
Yeah.
I want to, I don't want to do...
When you read that, I was thinking more of the more insidious implications of just how committed to this whole project that the Yeerks have. Esplin is, like, how much he might have driven forward, like, well, what if we infest them and then we don't come right out about the fact that we've infested them? We're actually going to go and pretend to be one of them.
But he doesn't want to let them know because he wants to be the one who infests the Andalite. So he's like, I can't let them know. We can't do an ensemble piece. This has to be a one-man show.
This isn't Chapman's Hork-Bajir musical. But here's the thing. If you see a bunch of Hork-Bajir coming at you with jazz hands, you know they mean business. Like that's the thing.
His goal is group choreography. He's actually...
It's true. It's so true.
Fosse-Bajir.
Oh my God.
More of an improv everywhere kind of thing. But instead of headphones, everyone wearing headphones, they just have yerks in their head. He had
silent
dreams.
rave with yerks.
5, 6, 7, 8.
All right, shall we? Chapter 19.
Voguing.
Yeah.
Actually, Visser 3's ultimate goal is to be one verk. One
verk. My hands were not meant for verk.
One yerk in 5 different heads at once. That's really his hope.
We dust their knickknacks, hundreds to the shelf.
What is
Chapter 19.
Work is what you do, rest.
Work is what you do for others. Liebchen. Art is what you do for yourself.
Do for yourself.
Chapter 19. Aldrea and Dak. It's Sunday in the Park with yerks. Aldrea and Dak climb down those stone stairways to explore the cliffside ruins. They find homes and businesses. I don't know how they know they're businesses. Walkways and plazas, all seemingly abandoned. But for how long? Aldrea cannot tell how old these structures are. They find one landing unlike the others, extending much deeper into the cliff, and decide to explore it. Once they enter, they find that the space is intimidatingly vast and shadowy. Every step of Aldrea's hooves echoes off stone walls she cannot see. She and Dak decide to camp here. At least the Yerks probably won't find them in this awful hellhole. Aldrea takes the first watch while Dak rests. She replays the last moments of her family's lives. Only a full Andalite fleet could save this planet. But to achieve that, she'd need a Z-Space transponder. The only place to find one of those would be on a Yerk ship. Even then, it would take at least 2 months before any substantial help would arrive. Dak sleeps beside her. He told her he would do anything for her, almost as if... No, they were different species. And yet, Aldrea enjoyed his company. She liked talking to him and missed him when they were apart. Maybe she was just lonely. Maybe she wouldn't be feeling this way if there were Andalite boys around. Aldrea wonders...
get the boys out here! Yeah!
Aldrea wonders what will happen if her people can't save them. Could Dak the Seer become Dak the General? Oh, this chapter.
So, I just have to say, I just want to start by saying blanket. I was blanket statement about this chapter, unbelievably happy with the pacing of it.
Yeah.
I reread it today and I was like, that was a breezy chapter. It hit all of its points. Mm-hmm. It did all of its things, and it explored a very nice, I don't know if my brain was just in the right place when I was reading it, but I was like, that felt balanced.
Yeah.
That felt like cutting butter.
Yeah.
That was the plot was butter.
With a hot knife,
just
not a cold knife.
Not a hot knife, I'm a pat of butter. You're a hot knife.
It's also funny that Aldrea seems super perplexed by the fact... I get the vibe that she's perplexed that Dak went right to sleep in front of her, and also how difficult it would be to sneak up on a Hork-Bajir. She's surprised how much he trusts her, but also she's like, it would be really hard to sneak up on a sleeping Hork-Bajir. I think I might love him. I think it might
why
be
is
fun.
she? Yeah, why is she thinking about sneaking up on him? Is she perhaps thinking about stealing a kiss? I don't know. It's very cute how she's like, I'm just lonely. I'm at the correct age.
Why so pointy?
For an Andalite girl to be taking an interest in males, and if there were any males around here, I wouldn't have any of these feelings. That's the only explanation. That's all. She says at one point, "Perfect, Aldrea. He's covered with blades. He'll soon be 7 feet tall. He eats with his mouth, and he swings through the trees." And I just really, really enjoyed "he eats with his mouth" being a negative thing about...
Yeah, especially when you eat with your feet, okay?
Right,
And it's raised a question of whether or not you can step without absorbing the substance that you're stepping on.
Right? And we don't know a lot about Andalite pooping. They've still kept that very secret. But I get, if they don't drop their waste on the ground, then I guess it's fine. But like, if they drop their waste on the ground, obviously eating with your mouth is better than eating with feet. That's just a personal opinion. The only other thing I have about this chapter is that we get her talk with her mother about how Andalites evolved from prey animals, and that's why they were so nervous and watchful. And she says this in response to like that she has trouble falling asleep. So like, me too. Go ahead, Chris.
All right. I have a big question for you guys. I know we're over time, but
we're more than over time. Go for it.
So after reading Megamorphs, deciding to read this book, we get sort of an action montage of Tobias and Rachel. And earlier I made the joke of the Rachelification of Aldrea. Like, I do think it's not a direct one-to-one. Obviously, some of the components are swapped, like, and in equal measure. Like, there's some sort of, like, flippy-floppy thing going here. But I actually kind of feel like stuff that would not be sayable between the Tobias-Rachel dynamic is actually more sayable here.
In terms of like interspecies romance going on?
Yeah,
I agree.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my whole thought is just like, I kind of feel like this is the missing piece of like where they may be going. I don't know if they're going there.
Even
I think
more
it makes these feel really good back to back for that reason, I think.
Yeah. So thank you, Discord, for recommending that. And if you have opinions about what we should read next, join our Patreon Discord.
It's true.
Do you think it would be even more legible if we had either Aldrea or Dak interacting with the beings that we might meet in the next chapter?
I'm sorry. Did I get ahead?
No. I'm just saying they're kind of bird-like, you know? So.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Let's segue to
That's
the next
That's fair.
Okay, sure.
They are
Let's
bird-like.
take a peek.
I love that Eddie is time conscious.
I'm not. I
it.
just actually made a connection. So, but I'll take it.
good.
Chapter 20.
That was organic, I'll have you know.
Yeah.
I love you. You can't see all the hearts I'm throwing your way.
Chris has been doing
this the
so
whole
many
time.
Zoom effects.
I'm like a year
the last
in the
two
air
chapters.
And I'm over here trying to comport with you.
Yeah.
You're just like
so
not
cute.
having it.
Capable of comforting. Chapter 20. In the middle of the night, Dak takes watch while Aldrea rests. Dak reflects on all of the things he's done, incredible and terrible, and realizes he can no longer just follow Aldrea. She had lied to him. She was an Andalite first, his friend second. Aldrea wants revenge. Dak wants to save his people. With each hour that passes, Dak realizes that more and more light is filling the space from above, brighter than the light from below. The light from above is brighter, clearer, daylight. The roof of this room is a vast dome, and at the center of the dome is a hole at the bottom of a shaft that extends all the way to the surface. Dak wakes up Aldrea. As more and more daylight fills the room, they can clearly see their surroundings. The walls are covered in a strange quilt of colors, blues and oranges and greens. The colorful quilt begins to move in the daylight, each patch of color revealing itself to be made up of wings and arms and heads. Dak realizes that he and Aldrea have been surrounded by sleeping creatures that resemble large, colorful chadoos. The chadoos drop to the floor, walking past Dak and Aldrea to begin their days.
The chadoo-like creatures.
The chadoo-like creatures drop to the floor, walking past Dak and Aldrea to begin their days. Only one really seems to notice Dak and Aldrea. That creature asks what they're doing there, in the Hork-Bajir language. Dak and Aldrea explain their circumstances, who they are, but the chadoo-like creature already knows about the Hork-Bajir and seems disinterested in the rest. The creature tells them to leave. Dak refuses. He demands to know who these chadoo-like creatures are. The creature says that they are the Arn, and his name is Quatsinikin. Aldrea asks...
Whoa, that was a fucking baller read on that. That was
smooth.
very good.
Aldrea asks if he realizes that the Hork-Bajir have no idea his people even exist. Quatsinigan says of course. That is by design. The Arn doesn't want the Hork-Bajir to know anything about them. In fact, They created the zone of separation. Remember the zone of separation? And it's monsters to keep the Hork-Bajir away. Kwasinikin tries to walk away, but Dak grabs him, demanding he answer their questions. Kwasinikin says that they are not a part of the balance. They will upset everything. Aldrea puts her tail blade to his throat. She'll make it simple for him, she says. Either he answers or his head goes rolling across the floor. Dak says that Kwasinikin answered their questions. He told them everything. By the end, Dak wished he knew nothing at all.
Okay. Are you ready? Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Arn.
Arn who?
Who?
Aren't you glad we created the zone of separation so you don't have to put up with what little shits we are?
Yes! Yes, very grateful, in fact.
Yes. Sorry, gratefully. Wow.
Okay. So if we were in a situation where we, the Anidorks, had
to go to the basement.
another species that we didn't want to interact with us. So we created this whole zone in between us and the other species.
You mean like the friend zone?
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding.
Yes, that's what's on the other side. That's what's on the other side. And then we created some mist, or we put a fog machine. I'm
trying to understand your metaphor. I'm like hearing the word zone.
Where
and
you like no, let Eddie finish. We don't know where he's going.
Yeah, and we're like, you know what? If we create this fog and we put some scary monsters, that other species that we made, they'll never walk through the fog and past the monsters, and we don't need to monitor that zone at all. We don't need to keep an eye on it to make sure they're not walking through. I just think that the is that correct? The Arn could have installed
like
some security cameras. They seem capable of security cameras. They could have had a guard standing
That is
there.
fair. I will say we don't know how long this has been working.
That's true.
So like if it's been working for like
But
and 2 small points.
Yeah.
Their main thrust of technology seems to be like genetic engineering, which is weird.
Yeah.
And chemicals. They can do those 2 things. They can terraform.
Yeah.
But they don't
have spacecraft as far as we like. I think we learned that later, and I was like, isn't it kind of weird that they put all their research tree points into genetic engineering and not learning how to leave their planet in any way, shape, or form, make it more inhabitable?
Yeah.
But also, if the Hork-Bajir, like, they don't really say it here. He does say that they're not supposed to be here and that they should leave and that the zone of separation was for that. Why is no other Arn reacting to the fact that he's here if it's such a big deal? Like,
here's the reason. Because that is the manager. And that is the manager's job.
Also,
you're probably so right. What was their plan, though? Were they just going to push him into the core of the planet? Like, they can't let him go back.
Along with that, Chris, I feel like maybe this isn't the first Hork-Bajir that's made it through. And every other Hork-Bajir, when told that they need to turn around...
Okay.
Well, every other Hork-Bajir is too... No other Hork-Bajir is Dak. No other Hork-Bajir is Dak. Dak has the seer ability, so like...
But I love this theory because it's very Matrix coded. It's very Dak is the seer of seers, the Neo.
It's like
seers.
they almost completed the hero's journey, but then midway through the hero's journey, they were told, just turn around and go back. What's
honestly, even if Dak went back and told them about the Arn, I'm not sure that they'd, 1, believe him, or 2, care.
Right. Dak seems to believe that they wouldn't believe him about Aldrea, who is standing there in front of him. Now, who's to say if that's true? But that's what Dak's impression of his people is.
I would say, like, I don't know, in my little headcanon, I believe it's more true that no Hork-Bajir have come back from the Blue Mist.
I think they either send them back through and they die on their way back, or they, like I said, shove them off a bridge. Like,
yeah. Here's my other question, and I'm pretty sure this is in the text. When Aldrea and Dak are going down and they're first seeing, they're going down those stairwells and they're seeing these structures that are built in the cliff sides. I'm pretty sure Aldrea has the impression that she sees homes and businesses.
She probably does say that. I just thought it was funny. Let me look.
I think she does. I think she says those words. And now we know we're getting her
does?
interpretation, but if there are homes there, why are they all sleeping in this shaft?
Because they're a shaft sleeping species.
Yes, yeah. So they don't sleep in their home. So what is a home in that case, I guess?
Yeah, she thinks they look like homes, but it may just be daytime dwellings.
It could be her interpretation. Yeah. 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 It seems strange that they have all of these structures, but then we just don't get to spend enough time with them. Yeah. Yeah.
It is very strange. They never really explain why they all sleep up there.
Also, if they can fly, why do they have stairwells?
They can only kind of glide, I feel like. Sort of like the Chadu, where they're more like flying squirrels with feathers than they are.
Even still, Eddie's right. Like, what is described to us is like an outcropping of rock that looks like a modern building. And, like, that is what is given. And it gives, like anthropological site circa, like, 3,000 years ago. And yet these creatures are nothing like you.
They said something weird. They stood on 4 legs. They had 2 elongated arms. They had faces dominated by the glittering eyes and small red mouths. But so, like, are there wings on just their arms, but then they have 4 legs? They're like a centaur, but with, like, wings on the upper body? I'm, like, a little confused about them.
Yeah.
This is perhaps the least well-described thing in the book that's not supposed to be mysterious.
You had a better vision of the crab people?
I did.
I still can't.
No, first of all, I am specifically talking about this book does a very good job describing things unless they're supposed to be mysterious, like the monsters in the deep. And that's what I meant, not across the whole series.
Miranda, I agree. It does feel like Chadu, the sequel. Like, it feels like,
And I didn't fully understand Chadu when we saw Chadu.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Everything else that you feel like is well described is something that's been being described for, like, many books at this point.
Well,
like Hork-Bajir
that's true.
Remember that thing that Visser 3 morphed into in book 1 that had all of those, you remember 16 arms?
Yeah, Antarian Barker.
Yeah.
We didn't get a name for it. It just had a thing about 8.
And target practice. You remember?
8.
Yeah.
It wasn't, I don't think it was 16.
Yeah.
Well, that's a multiple of 8.
It is.
Yeah, I'm having a little bit of trouble with the On. Good name, not like our other names in the series. I think it's short, it's sweet. I like it. I like that they're colorful.
Can you spell that for me?
Is it Is it Arn? Arn, A-A-R?
Arn, A-R-N, yeah, Arn.
A-R-N.
And
what can I tell you about the Arn? I can't tell you how much I love the Arn. The good guys.
Sit down and I'll tell you a yarn about the Arn. I'll spin a yarn about the Arn. Let me just sit down and tell you.
Okay. You know what? I don't have a lot in front of me. I'm going by memory, so.
No, you're doing an amazing job. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Oh, wait, I do have knock knock. Who's there? Arn who? Aren't?
I wrote that one down. I had to be sure I remembered.
But we won't include it.
But I mean, here's the thing: we're wrapping up Act 2. Like, this is Act 2 of this book. We're going into the last third.
Yeah, that's true.
Do we have any other interpretation of what the character that I called Quatsinikin? Do we have other ideas of how that?
It reminds me of a character from like Alice in Wonderland.
I think you could say Katsinikin. Like it could be like a. I think you could be not like, but like that's the only other interpretation of the spelling that I like. Like a Quetzalcoatl type thing where you don't say Quetzalcoatl, but like that's and I know Quetzalcoatl is still butchering the actual pronunciation that I don't know. So like
Axolotl?
Axolotl is also actually a butchering of the indigenous pronunciation that I don't know, but I have been told is.
You know, I will tell you, I've never pronounced a damn thing good.
That's true. I think these were inspired by the Anasazi, and I think that a Mesoamerican name is an indication that she did that on purpose.
Mm-hmm. Anasazi is from what?
They're like South North American cliff-dwelling indigenous people that all disappeared that people think aliens were involved with because they had these extremely like high-level cliff dwellings that they were like, how did they make these? And then there's no explanation for like where they went or like what happened to them.
Yeah, the explanation is always really boring. Like, they went to that other place where everyone was living.
Yeah,
or
it's
like
usually
something
that.
very bad happened. Or some mix of both.
Do we trust Yarn?
No.
I mean, no. They don't want anything to do with us. Why would we trust them?
Yeah. Well, because Jadoo, they're like the Jadoo, and the Jadoo have a cute name, so.
That's true.
Well, do like the Chidoo, but keep the Arn at an arm's length.
Okay.
That was in the Farmer's Almanac,
right.
I think.
Yeah.
Yep, I believe so. Poor
Or went out for the farm.
Quatsinigan.
Quatsinigan.
Poor Quatsinigan's almanac. Also, pour one out for Richard's almanac. Anyway.
Damn, dude.
All right.
All right. Thanks for listening to Anidorks. We'll be back soon with lots more to say. Until the Andalites return, or at least until next time. See you soon.